Hi friends. So we have another challenge as today's topic. Again, it's very common. What to do when a team's velocity is volatile or it's not consistent. So first of all, what is velocity? So velocity is a total number of story points a team is successfully, completing in a sprint. So there can be many reasons why a team's velocity is not consistent. So as a scrum master, when you observe that team velocity is not consistent, then it is better to bring it up with the team, maybe during a retrospective, and see what they think, what is their perception about it, yeah, what they think about this whole situation. So there can be multiple reasons for a team's fluctuating velocity, right? So based on my experience, let me share a few of the factors which I think a scrum master, as a scrum master, we must check, yeah, whenever this kind of scenario happens within a team. So I'll also suggest few of ways, like few solutions or a few tips to tackle this situation. But as I always say, you can always try and experiment new ways. Yeah, there is no one solution for any problem. There can be multiple solutions, right? So let me share the 15 possible reasons for an inconsistent velocity. Number one, the team is new to Scrum. So in such a case, normally the performance of the Scrum team would be a little off during the first few sprints, right? As the team are going through this new framework and getting adapted to this cross-functional nature of it. So there are chances that the team struggle to find their right capacity initially. Team here will experiment with their commitment to find the right balance for themselves. So it can be one of the reasons for having inconsistent velocity for initial few sprints, right? So what can a scrum master do here? The scrum master should help the team with the refinement and planning. He should take sessions or maybe one-on-one coaching to educate the team members on scrum process and practices, right? So the key here for a scrum master is to have patience, and help the team in every possible way to elevate from this forming stage to a storming stage. Number two, new team members onboarded. So whenever a new team member joins its Scrum team, everyone assumes that the team's capacity is increased now, and they overcommit in excitement. So it is it's one of the reasons that results in the inconsistent velocity. So again, Scrum Master should help the team to understand that it will take some time for this new member to get accustomed with the process, the work, the domain, the culture, in case the person is joining from a different organization. So what we can do here is to consider maybe 50% of this newly joined team members capacity during the initial few sprints during the planning. Yeah, so that's one of the way that we can handle this situation. Number three, team members leaving or moving out from the team. Okay, so again, very common scenario. Suppose one of a key team members moved out from the team, yeah, and say this person is on the project from the start and has a great command over the domain and the technology. He is like a SME for this project, and he's also like say the guiding light for the whole team. Helping them during the refinement, during the planning, reviewing their codes or resolving their impediments. So seems to be a superhero, right? So, well, if not all, maybe if not all this thing, but there are chance that the team members is doing at least one or two of these things that I mentioned, right? And you know, uh, if such a team member leaves the team, their departure will impact the team's velocity indirectly. Yeah. So as a scrum master, what we can do in this scenario? So we must ensure that the team is not creating dependency around one person, right? And scrum master should coach and promote cross functionality within the team. He should set up the new knowledge transfer sessions or promote pair programming to make sure that the knowledge is distributed across the team, and accountability lies with the whole team rather than one person is having all the knowledge and keeping it in silo, right? Number four, shared team member. So in many organization, few of the scrum team members are shared across more than one team. So it actually lead to ambiguity for that person. Yeah, on the timesheet he might be filling 50% for one team and 50% for the other, but in actual it gets hard for this person to manage expectation for both the teams, right? And sometimes shared team members they have to be they have to put extra hours for one team, which leads to incomplete user stories for the other one, right? And it's results in the volatile velocity, right? So what we can do as a scrum master here, so scrum master should first try to convince the leadership or the management to not have a shared team member at all, right? Help them understand the time lost or the undue pressure that a team member goes through due to this context switching, right? But yeah, again, many a times it's not possible because the companies are working in a legacy format, or they're in the in their transformation journey, and they're yet to become a complete agile organization. So if that doesn't work out, then what should we do? So scrum master should need to understand that the kind of what kind of work this shared team member is taking up. Is it sometime some kind of a niche skill? So if that is so, then scrum master should conduct some training sessions by this person for the whole team, right? He should ask the other interested team members within the team to shadow this shared team member, or maybe work with them in a pair programming way, so that the idea behind doing all this is to build the niche skill within the team and reduce the dependency on one single person. Again, it's same as the previous point that I mentioned. The idea should be that the team is should be cross functional and there will be no dependency on any single person, right? Number five, large user stories. So I have experienced a similar problem in one of my team. So the product owner is not breaking the story to a smaller unit, and as a result, we are keeping the larger stories in our sprint backlog. And since the stories were larger, even if one or two points from the acceptance criteria were not met, we were spilling the stories to the next sprint. Yeah, and there were sprints, or I remember there were moments when during the sprints that we could barely deliver anything, and then in the subsequent sprint we were claiming all the story points, which actually resulted in volatile velocity, right? So in such a case, the scrum master should work closely with the product owner to break the stories into smaller work items. He should coach the product owner on how to write maybe a good user story, or how to implement the invest criteria while writing the user stories, right? So it helps to understand the scope. When I'm talking from the team's perspective, it's helped to the team to understand the scope and efforts better, and it also helps them to actually deliver something of value, right? So when user stories are broken into smaller pieces, that makes the team members job easier to finish, say one story quickly, one by one each stories quickly, to achieve the sprint targets. And the team say, to give an example, the team say they're delivering 10 smaller stories per sprint rather than two or three larger ones. It's of a less of a mental stress for them as well, and once delivered, it also helps to keep the momentum going for the team. Like they keep delivering one or two smaller stories, it keeps the motivation highs and the momentum going, right? So overall, this means that the smaller points for each story, but since you could deliver more stories, the velocity should, in theory, it stay around the same. Yeah. Number six, overcommitment. So sometimes what happens that team overcommits for sprints, right? So there can be many reasons for that. Maybe the team may be too excited or too confident, or maybe they didn't understand the user stories completely before committing. So as a scrum master, one should help the team to get insights and some learnings from their mistakes. Yeah, it happens, mistakes happens, but we should take the learnings from there, right? Scrum master should help the team to lower their commitments, and at the same time help the team to work together on fewer stories at the same time, right? And we also must know that the teams that finish faster, that accelerate faster. So closing stories on time, give people a good feeling that translate into higher productivity. Number seven, holidays and sick leaves. So at times, team fails to account for holidays during the planning, and that again results in a overcommitment, right? So, for example, say I'm running a 2 week sprint, I may have one sprint with two holidays, which is like 20% less duration than the normal, 10 work day sprint. Also, if some of the team members are on vacation, the scrum master should make sure that he accounts in for lesser capacity during the planning. But again, in such a case, scrum master can't help much in tackling the inconsistent velocity, as things like holidays or personal leaves or sick leaves are not in our control, right? So what we can do is, it can what we can better manage is the situation, by planning in a better way, like by taking in account of the leaves and the holidays in during our capacity planning, and which will result in a better sprint planning. And also, if anyone asks for the reason behind inconsistent velocity during these periods, we can always provide the proper justification, right? Number 8, estimation approach. So many a times teams are not well acquainted with the story points or any other relative estimation techniques that the team might be using. So maybe they're newly introduced to it, or still their brains are wired to think on the lines of manas or idle days. So that results in an inconsistent point estimation, and because of which the team has a volatile velocity. So what we can do as a scrum master here, so scrum master should help the team to improve their estimation, make team understand and use benchmark stories. For example, identify a typical story as a one story point or a two story point and keep them as a benchmark. And when doing the estimates, ask team to use those to compare. So does this story need more effort, or is it complex, or is it more complex than the benchmark story? So team needs to decide and learn and use the estimation techniques to provide the consistent estimates, right? Number 9, impediments. So at times, few of the user stories or tasks get blocked because of impediments. So sometimes the team members fail to identify and highlight it at the right time, which actually delay the resolution of such impediments, and it blocks the team to complete those user stories, and it resulted in inconsistent velocity. So how we can help again? Scrum Master should help and coach the team to identify and voice out any challenges or impediments anytime during the sprint, right? Not, it doesn't have to be just the daily Scrum. They should highlight it anytime. But yeah, Scrum Master can leverage the daily Scrum to check with the team regarding any blockers, right? And if impediment is identified, team should team should track them, assign accountability, and bring them to the closure as soon as possible, so that the user stories get unblocked and the team can achieve their commitments on time. Yeah. Number 10, rework. So it is more like the team declares a user story completed, and the product owner comes back and says that okay, we need fixes, or and it involves rework and retesting. So poor quality of code needs to be kicked back several times during the sprint, and team may not have accounted enough time for such reworks during the planning, and it will result in inconsistent velocity, right? So the solution here is to write testable acceptance criteria upfront, right? The scrum master should help the product owner, help the team to write the proper acceptance criteria during the refinement, and maybe cross check that during the planning. So team should make sure that the user story gets completed when all these acceptance criteria mentioned is met, right? And it will help the team to provide a correct estimation. Scrum master should help the team members to understand the need of quality as well. He should promote the culture of maybe peer review, or test driven development, or business driven development, or many more. Like there are multiple techniques which will help the team to shift left and do make sure that the quality is at the highest end, right? It will help the team to deliver their stories with the highest quality. Number 11, unbalanced work. So there are teams where work is not balanced across development, design, or testing teams. So it may lead to the idle time. So there will be sprints where the design people will not have much to contribute, and then there will be sprints when the maybe the testing folks will not have much to work, right? So this can also be one of the reasons where the team is having fluctuating velocity. So the solution here is to get the teams to be more cross-functional, and we as a Scrum Masters, we should encourage the team to move into that direction. Now, one can must say that okay, why to have people with different skill set within a team? Because Scrum Guide suggests to have a cross-functional team, but we know in practical in our teams we do have people from different skills, right? Like testing or design, or back end or front end, right? So the team needs people from comprising all different skill set to successfully deliver sprint commitments or sprint goals with a timely manner. And not having this required skills in the team, it will result in dependency on other teams, which may results in a delays. So it is not a good idea to change the team members frequently, maybe as we spoke about in the shared team members case, like have someone with a design skill who will be shared across multiple teams. That's not a good idea. So let's take an example. So if this sprint we don't have design work, let the design person work on some other team. So that will not work, right? It goes back to the problem of shared team member that we discussed. So we need to understand that any change in the team members will influence the velocity, right? Number 12, running into unexpected technical debt. So yeah, I have seen in past that there are teams who just focus on delivering new features and don't bother about the creeping technical debt. So and then then comes in a time when these tech debts come back to bite them. Yeah, and when that happens, the sprint commitments goes for a toss, and it has a direct implication on team's velocity, right? So Scrum Master should make sure that the tech debts are addressed in a timely manner, and team needs to continuously clear the tech debts on the project to avoid any quality issues. So not working on technical debts, not only it will impact the velocity, but it will also lead to low quality and hence a low team motivation. Number 13, inconsistent sprint length. Very rare case, but yeah, there are some projects which may have the variable sprint length based on how they operate, right? So the approach may confuse the teams here on how much to commit for that particular sprint. So I think it's an anti-pattern and it must be avoided. So as a scrum master, we should make sure that to have a fixed length sprint maybe, and it is a good idea to plan a fixed length sprint for consistency, by considering team's effort and the release expectation. Number 14, scope change. So changing priorities has a direct and negative impact on team's velocity. So changing the scope of the user story in between the sprint is a bad idea. So most of the time, team may not be able to finish that work, and pushing the team to do extra work because of scope change may have its own side effects, right? So Scrum Master should not encourage the change in scope unless it's very urgent and comes with the proper valid justification. And scope of the user stories and the acceptance criteria must be well defined by the team at the time the team picks the work during the planning. And if there is a need to change the scope of majority of the user stories, suppose there is a case where the acceptance criteria need to be changed for most of the user stories, it is better to consult the PO and get that sprint cancelled. Yeah. Number 15, not estimating the spikes or retrospective action items. So many teams, they don't estimate the spikes or improvement work items. So they prefer to estimate only those items which will result in a direct business value. Well, I differ to that. And one of the reason I am in a disagreement with this statement is it result in inconsistent velocity. Right. Suppose a team of 6 members is having a velocity of 20 story points. Now during the upcoming sprint, two of the members decided to work on a spike, and other three will work on say new features along with couple of retro action items. Their estimated velocity for the upcoming sprint will be say 10, right? 10 story points. Now when the team's capacity is full in both the cases, why there is a difference in velocity? And that's why I encourage my team to create work items for anything they are planning to work on a sprint. Yeah. Scrum Master must bring these up in retrospective. All the factors that I have listed out, we can identify which is the reason behind it, and Scrum Master should bring that up in the retrospective for a discussion with the team, right? And team should address this deviation in velocity and come up with some experiments to solve it, right? And the Scrum Master should be leading the effort to figure out why. We can use the metrics that we collect, or the KPIs that we just maintain to conduct a gap analysis or a root cause analysis. So there are tons of ways to do this. It's just a matter of picking the method that works best for you as a scrum master and will resonate with the team who are actually going to help to fix the problem, right? Thanks for listening. Keep learning, keep evolving. Cheers.